This is Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Welcome to the weekly Top 3, the top 3 things on our mind here at Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets for the week of May 18th, 2026. The weekly Top 3 is a regular segment on The Michael Dukes Show. The show broadcasts on both Facebook Live and YouTube Live, as well as via streaming audio from the show's website, weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m. I join Michael weekly in the first hour of Tuesday's show from 6:10 to 7 a.m. for a discussion between the two of us about our 3 issues. We post the podcast of our discussion following the show on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook, YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, also on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets website, as well as the project's page on national blog site, medium.com. You can find past episodes of the weekly Top 3 also at the same locations. Keep in mind that in addition to these podcasts, during the week, you can also follow and participate in the discussion with us of these and other issues affecting Alaska's fiscal and economic condition by following us on the Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets Facebook page and through our posts on Twitter. This week, our top 3 issues are these. First, we discussed the effort yesterday by some to use the gasline bill permanently to divert revenues to their favored spending categories, and why we continue to be concerned about the potential for similar efforts in the future, even though yesterday's effort failed. Second, we explain what, in the euphoria about first oil, many are forgetting about the state revenue side of Pikka, Willow, and other new developments. And third, we discuss where the conference report puts the FY27 budget. And now, let's join Michael.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, joins us this morning fresh off his trip to the Emerald Isle and his music festival wanderings. He's a wandering minstrel. He's out there enjoying it. Good morning, my friend. How are you?
Michael, I'm doing great today. It's almost like I never left. You know, the legislature was in chaos when I left, and it's in chaos when I come back. I missed some of the ups and downs of the chaos, but you know, it's still the same.
I swear, Brad, if you could leave for 2 years and come back, and you'd be like, same song is still playing, the same song is still playing, same dance is still going on. But anyway, welcome back, and thanks for coming in and joining us. All right, let's get cracking on the weekly top 3. Sorry, I didn't mean to take too much of your time there, but I read that and I had to say, if it was bad, then it's bad. Why you're going to trade something? We're going to take this bad stuff, but we're going to, all right, but let's first get into it. The bill did not pass last night in the House. It was stymied, but that may not necessarily be a bad thing because there was some stuff that was stuffed into it. Give us the rundown here, Brad.
Yeah, it was an interesting exercise when the House thought that the governor might trade the pension bill for the gasline bill. People were attempting to stuff things into the gasline bill to accomplish unrelated objectives. Up to the point, there was this balance, up to the point that they don't want to stuff it too much or else the governor might not do the trade. But there certainly was an effort to stuff a lot of stuff into it. And I'm not sure we've seen the end of that. I mean, we have seen the end. We may have seen the end, should have seen the end for this regular session, but we may have a special session yet to go. Right. And we may have future sessions, future governors, future sessions to go on the gas line, and we may see the same sort of stuffing. One thing in particular that I had when I sent you the list for today that I had in mind was a provision in it that Zach Fields had put in, which it was leveraging up on a bill yet to be considered by the House. We'll talk about that in a moment. But leveraging up on a bill yet to be considered by the House that provided for how the revenues, all of the revenues from the gas line were to be divvied up. You know, the governor and others have talked about all the great boom in revenues that are going to come from the gas line, not immediately, but are going to come from the gas line over time. Zach already had a bill for how to divide those up. The first was to the permanent fund, not permanent fund dividend. The first was to the permanent fund. And then he had a provision in there that a chunk of it could go to the renewable fund to build, to fund government subsidized renewable projects. And then the third piece of it was anything that wasn't spent on the first two would go to K through 12. Now, we normally think, okay, well, that's designation, that's legislative designation. It doesn't bind the legislature. And so, yeah, okay, you're putting it, you're saying you're designating it for that purpose. But like the PFD, most normal people would think, well, like the PFD, it's just designated. It's not statutorily designated. It's not written in stone, not constitutional. And so, and so don't worry about it. But what's going on here is a twofer. Zach was anticipating, Zach's bill or Zach's provision anticipated that and the Senate's already passed this, that the House would pass a proposed constitutional amendment that would create a constitutionally dedicated education fund, K through 12 education fund, and that constitutional provision provides that anything put into it is constitutionally dedicated, can't be taken out to be used for other purposes, becomes constitutionally dedicated. And so what Zach's bill was doing, or what Zach's proposal was doing, was sweeping the remainder that didn't go to the permanent fund and didn't go to the renewable fund, sweeping the remainder into this yet to be newly created constitutional K through 12, and constitutionally dedicating the remainder of the funds to K through 12. I have been a big opponent. Yeah, this is the provision that he had in there. I've been a big opponent of the constitutional provision. I am hopeful the House defeats it if it makes it to a vote in these last 2 days. I've urged representatives to vote against the proposed constitutional provision, and it's because of this sort of stuff that I'm concerned about it. Any bill that comes along that has revenues attached to it from that, if the constitutional provision became effective, any bill that came along that had revenues attached to it could have this sort of provision that would sweep those revenues into the constitutionally dedicated fund, the K through 12 fund, and then keep them away from the legislature. The net effect of that, and we've talked about this before on the show, but the net effect of that constitutional provision is to take the low-hanging fruit in terms of revenues like the gasline revenues, sweep them into the K through 12 fund, and leave the remainder of the funding of government to things like PFD cuts. It would put increased pressure on PFD cuts, put increased pressure on increasing PFD cuts to pay for the government. It imbalances the way the budget works now in terms of revenues being used to pay for a variety of things, and all of them sort of competing together. It would take those funds, what Zach proposed, these funds, and sweep them into the constitutionally dedicated fund. So this is a provision that got knocked out last night. Jeremy Bynum quickly sent a note on one of the Facebook pages that said, "Oh, we defeated this." This provision got knocked out last night during the consideration of the bill before the bill itself imploded. But this provision was in there, and it's not enough to say, well, this one got knocked out.
Right.
What that constitutional provision does is set up the ability to continue to have these sorts of things ad infinitum as we go along. So what we need to do in order to make sure this sort of provision doesn't keep showing up in future gas line bills or in future oil tax modifications or anywhere else is we need to make sure that the underlying constitutional provision they're relying on is defeated on the House floor if it comes for vote in these last 2 days.
What does this tell you about now, just so the folks know, the bill, as Brad said, read that notwithstanding any other provision of law, the Alaska Education Fund which is the constitutionally protected fund, consists of all revenue received by the state associated with the North Slope natural gas project that remains after they put some in the permanent fund and the payment to municipalities and the renewable energy grant. After that, everything else goes to education. But what does this tell you overall, Brad, about the mindset of the legislators, both in the House and the Senate, in regards to the gas line? What does it tell you about their actual mindset over this project?
Well, again, this got defeated last night, so it tells you that they're not willing to take everything, but it tells you that that the governor has indicated that he wants the gas line so much that people are stuffing things into the bill approving the gas line, hoping that he will buy off on that because he gets his gas line. And it's this balance of how much can we get on the other side? How much can we get out of the governor in exchange for the gas line? I mean, the big trade, it was the pension bill, right? We get the pension bill if you get the gas line. I mean, but think about that, Michael. Think about that. We get the pension bill, which once you have a pension, the Constitution protects going forward until you revise the pension for people going forward. But whatever is accrued in the meantime is protected, constitutionally protected. We get the pension bill. You get a gas line bill that we can amend next session. I mean, it's telling you that the governor has indicated he's so desperate for a gas line bill that he's willing to take stuff like the pension bill. Potentially, if this had gotten through the House, stuff like the
Right.
Zach Fields proposal,
Right.
that he's so desperate for the gas line that he's willing to take bad stuff just to get the gas line, the potential of the gas line.
Right. Well, and I look at this and I see, and Kevin McCabe is in the chat room, and he says this, which I follow. I believe in exactly. He says, "I predict the gas line is dead. Every rep is thinking of their own district and not the state and the 100-year legacy of this project. Short-term greed, even in Anchorage, Fairbanks, North Slope, versus long-term strategic thinking." And I think you could substitute the different communities for the short-term greed for special interests as well. This is what Zach Fields is trying to do in his special interest, to protect the special interests. I don't think the gas line is dead per se, but I would agree with the whole this is the thinking that's in the legislature. What can I get? How can I get my constituencies, my community, my special interests covered, regardless? And if we lose a project, we lose a project. I'm just going to get everything I can on top of that.
Yeah, and they're going for things that are permanent. I mean, Zach Fields, if the constitutional provision is passed, hope it's not, but if the constitutional provision is passed, that and Zach Fields' provision have been included in the bill, and the bill got through, the governor signed it. That's a permanent thing, and the gas line's not a guaranteed thing. So they're going for things that they will get permanently, stuffing things that they will get permanently, even while the gas line's still out there. One thing on the gas line, I don't think it's dead. It may be dead legislatively in Alaska, but what we need to bring back into mind is Trump's executive order on the Defense Production Act. And I think to some degree, I said this before on the show, but I think to some degree this is all kabuki theater, sort of leading up to the Defense Production Act. I don't think the gas line will get financed, even if the legislature passed whatever gas line bill the governor wanted intact with no amendments. I don't think the financing is there for the gas line out there in the market. I mean, look at how many LNG projects are going to FID in the world, or on their way to FID in the world, and Alaska's lagging. I mean, it's a high cost project. People don't want to take a risk on it. I think the federal government coming in with the DPA is how the gas line is going to get built. And what happened last night, what's happening with the legislative gas line bill, what happened with the governor's proposal, I think is all kabuki theater leading up to the DPA designation.
Because if the DPA comes in, that takes it all out of the state's hands. At that point, it's no soup for you. Sorry. They're going to take it in and they'll make it a national security thing, and then there you go. That's
it's like building an Air Force base or building an Army base. It becomes a defense installation essentially, and is subject to federal government control. And what the state gets out of it at that point state still gets upstream revenues from the producers, but what the state gets out of the pipeline at that point is entirely up to the feds in terms of what they're willing to authorize as payments in lieu of taxes.
Terry says constitutional amendments should be voted on by the people. We can't trust the legislature. This would have been voted on by the people. The problem is, this is my thought, Terry, if they come in and say, think of the children. Wouldn't you like to help the children? Wouldn't you like to know that your children are being educated? I mean, that's the thing. Most people are not paying attention to the finite details of this. If you put it in front of them on a ballot that said, would you support, protecting education for the future? Most people would say, sure, that sounds good. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what they would be doing to themselves by putting this into the Constitution. Brad?
Yeah, my response to that when people have raised it with me is elections in Alaska right now are a lot more about money than they are about votes. Votes are being driven by money. And given where we are on campaign finance in Alaska right now, and given where we are nationally, there's virtually unlimited amounts of money that can be put into this. So let's think about this for a minute. The education industry has the opportunity to set up a constitutionally dedicated fund for its use. Because once the funds are in there, they are constitutionally dedicated to K through 12. So there's going to be a lot there. If this gets out of the House, if the constitutional amendment gets out of the House, there's going to be a huge amount of money put in behind pushing for that constitutional support for that constitutional amendment among the voters. And as I say, given where Alaska is on campaign finance, there's going to be virtually an unlimited amount of money that's going to come in support of that constitutional amendment with the theme that you just outlined. It's for the children. Right. So I don't get a whole lot of comfort out of the fact that the constitutional amendment would have to go to a public vote. I don't think public votes are really what people think they are anymore. Well, they are money games.
Yeah, especially the way that this one could be framed. I mean, I would see this, if this made it to the public, I'm assuming it would pass because again, it's for the children. And if it's for the children, then most people are, oh, okay, that sounds good. Never even thinking of the deeper problems associated with it. Okay, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, and the weekly top three. Let's jump into number 2 of the weekly top three. What many people are forgetting about Pikka and Willow and all the other ones out there. I mean, we got the big headline yesterday, first oil from Pikka. It was all great. And I announced it yesterday and I said, yeah, but don't forget, we're not actually getting any more money, just more production. Anyway, Brad, what are we forgetting here? Give me the rundown.
So Pikka is great. I mean, I don't want to minimize it. I think it's great that we found additional oil resources. I think it has led others to be excited about the potential for additional opportunities. But we need to keep in mind what's going on here from a revenue standpoint. Pikka, the $80,000 or the 80,000 barrels that are coming on stream are really just going to fill in for the decline curve that we have going on in the traditional slope, Prudhoe, Kapparik, and elsewhere. If you look at the spring revenue forecast, you look at the volumes in the spring revenue forecast, volumes from state lands stay about even across the entire 10-year period. The real bump in volumes comes when Willow comes on and when additional federal lands volumes come on. That's what really causes the spike in production that many talk about. Pikka is just sort of filling in the gaps that otherwise would be created by the decline curve that's coming from state lands. And so let's think about that a second. Pikka does bring royalties on the production volumes, but those royalties are really just filling in for the royalties we're going to be losing as a result of the decline curve elsewhere on the slope. So from a royalty standpoint, we're just about staying even in terms of revenues over the projection period. What Pikka does, though, because of the way SB 21 is written and because of the way the credits stack up, Pikka doesn't bring production tax revenues. We've done segments on the show, and we did an analysis on the landmark page or on the landmine page a few months ago about what Pikka does from a production standpoint. And you can see that Pikka doesn't bring in any new production tax revenues. Yeah, here we are. This is DOR, Department of Revenue Analysis. And it shows that Pikka starting in 2026, like it has, running quickly up to 80,000 barrels a day, the peak. But production tax revenues don't start until we're after the peak, until 2034, because of the way the production tax credits work. And we don't even get to minimum production tax credits. We don't rise above the 4%, the current minimum production tax credits, until 2038. And we don't get to full production tax credits until after that. And as you can see, we're way down the production decline curve on Pikka at that point. So what's happening is Pikka is replacing the decline curve the declines that we're having from existing sources. It's filling in those gaps. Yay for that. It's producing royalty revenues that will help fill in the gap from the decline, from the loss in royalty revenues from the decline in traditional sources. But Pikka won't be replacing the production tax revenues we're getting off existing production. It doesn't even start contributing until 2034, until after Pikka limit. So what happens is we have a decline in revenues, state revenues from production, due to the fact that the Pikka volumes, when they're replacing the existing volumes that are in decline, Pikka is not bringing production tax with it at all until 2034, and not at the same level until 2040. So when people talk about, oh, we're safe, Pikka's here, this 80,000 volume, 80,000 production will save us. No, it won't. I mean, we're in decline. The irony of all this is we're going to have a decline in revenues from production at the same time as we're having this huge spike in production. Once you count in the federal volumes, don't bring any royalty revenue. Right. New leases, production from new leases do, because of a provision that Nick Begich worked into the OBBA, but that doesn't start until new leases start producing, and that's way the heck down the road. And so federal volumes, the new federal volumes that are going to be coming from Willow, don't bring any royalty revenues, and because of the same provisions that we're seeing with Pikka, they don't bring in any production tax revenues. So what we need to celebrate the new production. Yes, we do, because otherwise we would be in even steeper decline than we've been in for the past 10 years. We need to celebrate those volumes, but don't think, and don't let anybody try to convince you that this is even a contributor to even a partial contributor to the solution of the state's fiscal problems. It is, in fact, because of the oil tax credits, it is in fact a contributor to the state's fiscal problems, because it drags down oil revenues as long as those credits keep going. So
I keep hearing, oh, we'll make it up on volume. It's not how it works, man. If you're taking in less, that's just not how it works. You'll just go broke faster at that point.
And everybody says, oh, well, this opens the door to additional development, and that'll save us. No, it won't, because as long as these oil tax credits stay in place, as long as they stack the way they do, and this is not what SB 21 contemplated. This is sort of SB 21 spinning out of control 10 years by not looking at it again 10 years after it was enacted. SB 21, what happens is additional development, additional oil volumes are just going to have the same credits. And so we're going to continue in this decline of revenues over the long term, as long as this keeps repeating itself.
This is, again, part of the big problem, and we keep seeing about all this joy and all this excitement about this stuff. And again, we're taking in less. I mean, it's great that we're getting new production. Again, new production is great. That's all good. But if we're not getting, as owners, if we're not getting the full kick, it doesn't do us any good. If we're taking in less revenue with more production, if you just extrapolate that out, we're getting more and more production with less and less revenue. Again, we're going broke faster. We have to look at SB 21.
Yeah. Oil contractors are ecstatic. I mean, oil contractors who got the contracts to go up on the slope to build out Pikka, who are building out Willow, who potentially build out other fields, they're ecstatic. I mean, to them, it is revenue because they're getting contracts to build this stuff. But that's a very small slice of Alaska. You have to look at what's going on with the remainder of the state. And this is putting the state in even more difficult economic circumstances going forward. If we have a population growth, I mean, people say, "Oh, we need more population." Well, if we have population growth because of this, we will not have the revenues to support that, to provide the state services to support that population growth because of the way SB1 is operating in its old age, in its doddering old age. So I appreciate the headlines that say Pikka, 80,000 barrels a day. Aren't we rolling in the oil now? And people who say, yeah, Willow's going to come behind it and Pikka 2 is going to come behind it. I appreciate the enthusiasm that generates, but don't let anyone tell you that enthusiasm carries over into a solution for the fiscal issues that we're facing at a state level. Indeed, because of the way the credits operate, and as I said, Pikka results in a net decline in revenues because of the way SB 21 operates and the way these oil credits operate in SB 21's old age. We're going to see a decline in state revenues at the same time as we may see a pressures for even increased state services.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. This is number 2. I got to tell you, Brad, we've got to address SB 21. It is it's not a suicide pact, right? We can't just hold on to it and glom onto it forever and say, this is the way it's always going to be. We always have to go back and look at, especially when there's unintended consequences, when things happen beyond the scope of what the original framers of SB 21 envisioned. They're like, this is what it's all going to be. And then it blows up way beyond that. And then you're like, this framework was not built to handle this new stuff. We have to re-examine it.
It wasn't. So SB 21 was really, there's an incentive in there for new development called the gross volume reduction and the provisions around the GVR volumes, what are called the GVR volumes. There were provisions in there. And at the time SB 21 was enacted, I recall estimates of maybe 5%, maybe 10% of the volumes would be GVR volumes. And it's GVR that's causing this effect in Pikka where they don't pay production taxes until well after they've hit the peak production, until well after production is going. And I recall, estimates at the time that there were going to be fairly minimal percentages. Well, GVR volumes grow to something like, in the 10-year period of the current spring revenue forecast, grow to something like 40%, 50% of the volumes. And so what's going on? And GVR volumes stack in a way that produce this effect, as you're seeing in the Pikka curve, production curve, of where production taxes are put way off, and even when you get them, you don't get the full amount. It's the GVR volumes that are a big driver of that. And if you see that GVR volumes are going to grow to 40% or 50% of volumes, you can see the effect they're going to have on production tax revenues, or wiping out production tax revenues. Yes, it's great we're having this surge in development. Yes, the oil field contractors are ecstatic. I mean, you talk to AOGA, you talk to the Alliance, you talk to the RDC. Boy, they're all for this. The problem is it is making the state's fiscal situation much worse.
Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets, the weekly top 3. Craig is just in here saying that I'm completely misinterpreting what the governor was doing, that he wasn't trading the defined benefits bill for the gasline bill, that it's just my interpretation of it. It doesn't matter what the legislative leader said. It doesn't matter what all this other stuff said, that the governor was just apparently playing fifth dimensional chess here. And it's just my interpretation of it. I mean, it's just what everybody said, including Kevin McCabe and Sarah Vance and all these other people saying this is what's going on. Ben Carpenter has been watching from the wings. This is what is said. I mean, they pretty much admitted it. He waited until 11 p.m. last night to veto the bill because they couldn't get the gas line thing passed. You don't think he was trading the gas line for the defined benefits bill? I don't know what to tell you, Craig. I really don't.
Well, just look at what was going on yesterday. I mean, the governor initially announced a press conference at 10 a.m. in the morning to discuss the gas line and the pension bill, and then he moved it to noon as the legislative day wore on, and then he moved it to 3, and then he moved it to an indefinite. I mean, he was clearly. I mean, there's no one who was thinking that he was just waiting around to issue the veto that was always going to come. He was clearly waiting to see what the play out was on the effort to get the gas line bill through at the last minute. So, yeah,
of course, there's a negotiation, but not the way you were claiming. I don't know what you mean. What was I claiming? I'm claiming that he was trading the defined benefits bill for a gas line bill that he could approve. What difference am I claiming here, Craig? I'm not claiming anything different. He also said, Brad, do you really think Pikka or Willow would have happened without SB 21?
Yes, it would. They would have happened. Let me nuance the answer this way. SB 21 sort of got everybody's attention focused on new developments. It corrected for ACEs and corrected for the disincentives that ACEs created. So SB 21 got everybody's attention focused on it. The problem is no one thought SB 21 was going to go in because of the way that the credits pile on top of each other. I don't think anyone thought through where SB 21 was going to go as it got into its old age, as it passed the 10-year mark. And so would the developments have occurred if we knew that SB 21 was going to act in this way and fixed it at the outset? Yes. I think those developments would have gone. So I don't think the developments are conditioned on this weird thing that we've got going on with the way the GVR credits are piling on top of everything else. To put another way, I think that's producing the way those GVR credits are operating now, and the way that they've stacked on top of the other credits, and the way that it's producing this negative production tax. I think that is a windfall. The negative production tax is a windfall to the producers. Yeah, and I don't think the producers counted on this windfall in making their initial investment decisions.
So it would have happened regardless. And by the way, Craig, Rob said straight from the horse's mouth, he said, I spoke to the governor last night. That's what was happening. There was a trade going on, one for the other. So, I mean, again, you believe what you want to believe, my friend. It doesn't matter to me. But I did not put any words in the governor's mouth. I read it directly. From the press release. So that's what it was last night. And again, my whole point was this trade for something that he called an unfunded liability risk to the state and participating employers, and talking about how it contained unresolved legal, tax, administrative, and fiscal issues that create uncertainty. That's, again, no surprise. Those are things that he said. And if it's bad for that, and that's why he vetoed it, I don't know why he would want to support it any other way. Go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
Well, so if I were the governor's defense lawyer on this issue, what I would say was, in theory, look, I'm going to get revenues out of the gas line. Yes, the pension bill is bad. It's going to cost us a lot of money, but I'm getting revenues and I'm getting development out of the gas line. And so that's the trade. I'm getting new revenues. I'm getting new things going on out there, new dollars coming on out there for this commitment to the pension benefits. The problem with that is it's a trade of something that's fixed. The defined benefits would be fixed for as long as they lasted because of the constitutional protection of pensions. You're trading something fixed for something that is ethereal, can be changed in the next legislature. There would be no permanence. There is no permanence,
right,
to whatever provisions. That's another reason we're going to have the DPC come in. But there is no permanence to whatever you pass on the gas line bill. It can be changed tomorrow. It can be changed, 2 years from now. It can be changed 3 years from now. So you're changing a fixed obligation. even from the defense standpoint, you're changing an obligation that's fixed for an obligation that's unfixed, or for a benefit that's unfixed and can be changed. So it was a bad trade, but he is so focused on this gas line. Again, I'm not quite sure why, but he's so focused on this gas, given the DPC, given the Defense Production Act that's sitting behind this. He's focused on the gas line.
Welcome back to the program. Brad Keithley, the weekly top three. We're ready to go. We're continuing on, ready to get into it. Number three, Brad. Number three of the weekly top three, where the conference committee report puts the fiscal year 27 budget. Now, we do know that the PFD has remained at $1,000. They did increase the energy relief payment to $200 whopping dollars. So, I mean, that's right. That's great. I mean, $200. But where does this put us in the end here? What are we looking at?
Well, this is one of the benefits of me being gone for 2 weeks, because you didn't have to put up with these intervening charts in the meantime that would have come out about what the House had done and what the Senate had done. So we can go straight to the conference committee chart and talk about what the FY27 budget looks like. If you can throw that up for me quickly, Michael. Thank you. So this is a chart. This is a chart approach that we've used in previous segments. On the left-hand side, on the far left-hand side, is the FY26 budget, updated for the supplementals, huge supplemental that the legislature has passed on the FY26 budget. And on the right, those two blocks on the right are the FY27 budget. Each of those on the left side, we have spending that's gone on, and on the right side, we're showing revenues that is being used to fund that spending level. The FY26 budget is going to come in or as passed through the conference committee process with the supplemental, is going to come in at around $5.87 billion in spending, 5.8 using the spring revenue forecast as the basis for the revenue, $5.81 billion in spending. That looks like a deficit of $60 million. It's really not, because we're going to end up with more revenue at the end of this year. Given the spike in oil prices, we're going to end up with more revenue than what the spring forecast projected. So that'll roughly balance out. And the legislature, frankly, took advantage of that in the final days when they did the energy relief payment, added the energy relief payment to the FY26 budget, and added in the additional supplementals, have taken advantage of that additional revenue that they anticipate coming as a result of the oil price spike. And so, 5.8, 5.85 looks to be about where the FY26 budget ends up. Over about a third of that, a little bit less than a third, about 30% of that coming from PFD cuts. People say, well, we've got this spike in oil prices and it's going to fund all this spending. It's not. I mean, this is the stack on the right is how they're funding the spending, and the PFD cut level didn't change. And so about 30% of the spending is going to be funded by PFD cuts. FY27 gets worse in that respect. FY27, the spending, using the conference committee numbers, the spending is going to be about $6 billion, $6.03 billion. The revenue is about, using the spring revenue forecast again, the revenue is about $6.04 billion. That revenue may be higher as a result of the price spike. It may not. I mean, if Hormuz gets opened, oil starts flowing again, various things recover, prices may drop back down toward the levels that were projected in the spring revenue forecast. If it doesn't, we may have additional revenues that they'll somehow find to spend next year in the supplemental. But spending's up about $100 million, $6.03 billion. $5 billion of that's on the agency budget, and $600 million of that's on the statewide budget, which includes the energy, whatever Energy Relief Act, and then $380 million, huge spike in capital spending from $160 million in the FY26 budget to $380 in the FY27 budget. And then I've got $50 million up there for supplementals, but supplementals really depends upon what revenue you have. If you have a lot of excess revenue, the legislature finds a way to spend that excess revenue. The real thing that and I've talked about this before, but I want to keep people focused on the permanent fund dividend would have been up from statutory permanent fund dividend would have been up about $300 million from the FY26 level, about whatever that calculates to on a per person level, but it would have been up about
close to $4,000 statutorily.
So it would have been up. It would have been up from FY26 levels. But the legislature took that increase. I mean, people say, "Oh, well, the PFD is going to be about the same from last year to this year." No, it's not. I mean, on an individual PFD basis, what they've done is they focused on the individual PFD basis. But on the basis of what the statutory amount of the PFD would have been, the PFD would have been up about $300 million. The legislature's taken all of that for itself, all of that increase. None of it leaked out to Alaska families. All of that $300 million increase in the PFD amount was taken by the legislature in additional cuts to support spending. So the net result of this is, the House majority, whoever the House majority is at the time, whether it's Republican or Democrat led, likes to always claim, "Oh, we have a balanced budget." But look how they're getting to the balanced budget. The budget's being balanced on the back of PFD cuts. I mean, and a huge amount of PFD cuts, an increasing amount of PFD cuts. That's how they're getting to a balanced budget. If you look at statutory revenues, if you looked at the statutory PFD and other statutory revenues, we'd be in a huge deficit. We'd have spending of roughly $6 billion. We'd have revenues of roughly $4 billion. That's the combination of oil plus the oil revenues plus the portion of the POMV draw that's statutorily set aside for government. We'd have about $4 billion in revenue. We'd have a $2 billion gap. The only reason we're getting to a balanced budget, when people claim we're getting to a balanced budget, the only reason we're getting there is because of the huge level of PFD cuts, and growing level of PFD cuts. When the PFD gets an increase from additional earnings, and PFD would be higher, just raking that off and giving it to government to spend. The only way we're getting to the balanced budget is through these huge PFD cuts. So I think it's important to keep in mind what's really going on here. The level of personal taxes, if you consider PFD cuts as I do, as economists do, if you consider PFD cuts as taxes, the level of taxes, personal taxes that are being levied, most regressive tax approach ever proposed. The level of personal taxes are being leveled to keep the budget in balance is huge. It's about 30 some odd percent, more than 30% this year of the budget's being financed through PFD cuts.
No, I mean, again, you look at it and they're taking $2 billion from the people in the form of PFD cuts, $1.95 billion from people in the PFD cuts. And people walk around and look at themselves and pat themselves on the back saying we're not being taxed. I mean, it's $1.95 billion on 700,000 people. That's a huge, huge amount of tax. That means you're getting, statutorily, it should be a $4,000 PFD, and they're taking $3,000 of it. That's what you're getting out of this.
It's more than, we run these, we do a Friday chart every week that calculates the level of the PFD cut in terms of its impact on AGI, in terms of its impact on GDP. The tax is about 4.5% of adjusted gross income is how much is being taken out in taxes through PFD cuts. I mean, that's we're taxing ourselves. We're taking 4.5% of adjusted gross income out of the pockets of Alaska families, putting it into government. That is a tax, and that's how we're financing the level of government. If you look back at that chart for just 1 second, there's one other point I want to make. If you look at that chart on both the left-hand side and the right-hand side, PFD cuts are the single largest source of revenue to government in both years. Single largest source, bigger than the portion of the POMV that's designated for government, bigger than oil, the single largest source of revenue in both years.
Well, thanks for that piece of good news. 1.66 billion this year, 1.95 billion next year, and it is significantly more. It's 60% more in revenue than the statutory POMV. And you see that their percentage of the POMV dropped because they're taking more from you. That's what it all comes down to. They're taking more from you all the way down here.
And when Michael, when people say, "Oh, oil taxes don't matter," I mean, oil's just it isn't the biggest source of revenue anymore. What's going on is as oil taxes drop, as oil revenues drop over the year, and they're spiking a little bit here because of price, or they're up a little bit here because of prices, but oil prices in the spring revenue forecast. But as oil revenues drop over time, the thing that's filling in the gap is PFD cuts. It's not any other source, any of the 5 major sources of revenues. What's being used is PFD cuts. So it's when people say oil taxes don't matter, it's fine that SB 21 has this weird effect as it passes its 10th birthday, and it's fine that it's doing all these unintended consequences. It's not, because it's coming out of the pockets of Alaska families through additional PFD cuts. And it is, as when you do this sort of chart on it, as I've done for the last however many years I've done it, when you do this sort of chart on a continuum, you see it develop over time. You see oil revenues going down, and you see PFD cuts climbing to keep this balance that Calvin Schrage is so fond of talking about.
Right.
To keep this balance. And oil taxes matter. You get oil revenues up, assuming that you have a spending cap, or somebody doesn't go off the deep end and spend all the additional money. Oil revenues are up. PFD cuts are going to come down.
Well, as we look at this and we see this, at some point we've got to acknowledge that, folks, there's a problem here. I mean, we know that, but really we've got to notice that there is a problem. They're taking $2 billion out of the private economy to prop up government, and you're saying that it's not a tax. The taking of the PFD is a tax, $2 billion worth in 2027 coming out of the pocket of Alaskans. Just think about what that could do to the economy. I mean, if you've got a family of 2, that's $6,000 a year. If you've got a family of 4, that's $12,000 a year that you could be doing something with, whether it's putting tires on your car, buying a trip to Hawaii, or putting it away, or starting a business, or all these things. And none of that money is coming to you. It's going straight to the government. And then
it's being recirculated at the whim of 21 in the House, 11 in the Senate, and a governor who may or may not have his vetoes upheld, who may or may not veto it, may or may not have his vetoes upheld. That's instead of 625,000 people, that's the approximate number of PFDs, instead of them deciding how that money is spent, you're putting it in the hands of 21 plus 11 plus 1. And that's, I mean, you talk about central planning.
Yeah, no. Ken says I could actually afford heating fuel with a full PFD. Yeah, I mean, that's it. You look at it and you go, I remember many years when I remember it was 2016, 2015, 2016 was the first years that I was able to actually put the PFD away as a buffer in my savings account to be able to use it for other things. Up until that point, man, I was using it to put heating fuel in the tank, tires on the cars, all those things. That was all great. And then in 2016, 2017, they submarined the whole thing. And since then, we've been behind the power curve the whole time, and they've just been taxing us to death.
And in the lower 48, where royalties are privately held, people do get that money, and they spend it the way they want to. The thing about Alaska is we have collective ownership of the resource, and so the royalties that in the lower 48 go direct to the landowners. The royalties in Alaska go through the PFD and go through the permanent fund, and the legislature can grab them along the way. We're not doing anything different. The PFD isn't anything different in Alaska than what normal royalties are in the lower 48. The difference here is they come through in a way that the legislature can grab them, can tax them along the way in a way that you don't have in the lower 48. But otherwise, they're exactly the same thing.
All right, Brad Keithley, Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Brad, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's good to talk with you. Thank you for being part of the show today.
Michael, thanks for having me back.
It's good to have you back, my friend. Good to have you back.
Well, that's a wrap for another week's edition of the weekly top 3 from Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. Thank you again for joining us. Remember that you can find past episodes on our YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and Substack pages, and keep track of us during the week on Facebook and Twitter. This has been Brad Keithley, Managing Director of Alaskans for Sustainable Budgets. We look forward to you joining us again next week for the next edition of the weekly top 3.